Mr. Vince MacDonald, would you like to come to the podium, please? Vince MacDonald.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Keilor East RSL Anzac Day Dawn Service. We'll shortly commence our service. I ask that you make sure that your mobile phones and any connected devices are set to silent or turned off. A reminder to stand to and remove your headdress at the saying of the Ode, the playing of the Reveille and the singing of national anthems and the last post. I'd like to welcome our invited guests here today. Ben Carroll, State Member for Niddrie, City of Moonee Valley Mayor Piers Tyson, Deputy Mayor Samantha Byrne, Councillors John Sypek and Ava Adams, Captain David Johnson from 4 CSSB. Apologies today from Mr Bill Shorten and Mr Danny Pearson. We at Keilor East RSL acknowledge the traditional custodians throughout Australia. We recognise their continuing connection to land, sea and waters. We pay our respect to elders past, present and future. We also acknowledge the commitment of Indigenous servicemen and women, both past and present, to Australia. Kata whapari. I'd like to welcome Mr John Johnson, OAM, President Keilor East RSL, for the welcome address.
Good morning everybody and thank you for attending this service today. I would like now to read a roll of honour from the nurses who died during or as a result of war service since the Boer War. Sister Hines, buried in Bulawayo in South Africa, 1900. Sister Louisa Bicknell, buried in Keilor in Egypt, 1915. Sister Claire from Footscray, buried in India, 1918. Sister Ruby Dickinson, buried in Cowley, Middlesex in the UK, 1918. Sister May Hennessy, buried in Bendigo, 1919. Sister Hilda Knox, buried in the French cemetery at Rouen, 1917. Sister Edith Moorhouse, in the French cemetery at Southern Lille, 1918. Sister Letitia Morton, buried in India, 1916. Sister Gertrude Monroe, buried in Greece, 1918. Sister Amy O'Grady, buried in India, 1916. Sister Rosa O'Kane, buried at Woodman's Point in Western Australia, 1918. Sister Catherine Agnes Porter, buried in New South Wales in Waverley, 1919. Sister Kathleen Power, enlisted in Melbourne, originally from Ireland, buried in India, 1918. Sister Doris Ridgway, Woodman's Point, Western Australia, buried in 1919. Sister Elizabeth Rothery, buried in Beechworth in 1918. Sister Mary Stafford, buried in Torres Park, South Australia in 1919. Sister Ada Thompson, buried in Western Australia in 1919. Sister Fanny Tyson, buried in Wiltshire in the UK, 1919. Matron Jean Walker, buried in Wiltshire in the UK in 1918. Sister Beatrice Watson, buried in India in 1916. Sister Blodwin Williams, buried in Caulfield, 1920. Second World War. Captain Margaret Adams, the Centre, she was buried at sea. The Centre was a hospital ship which was torpedoed on the southeast coast of Queensland. 1943. Sister Marguerite Atkinson, Tamworth, 1942. Sister Balfour Ogilvie in Banker Island, 1942. Sister Louisa Lavinia Bates, Banker Island, 1942. Banker Island, those 22 Australian nurses were marched out to sea and were machine gunned in their back, and the only survivor was Sister Vivian Bulwinkle. 21 of them were killed on the beach at Banker Island. Sister Alma Bird, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Alda Bridge, Banker Island. Sister Eleanor Calnan, Banker Island. Sister Florence Casson, Banker Island. Sister Mary Clark, Banker Island. Sister Joan Connell in Melbourne. She served at the RAAF, 1942. Captain Florence Cox, Perth, Western Australia, 1945. Sister Marie Craig, MID, also served with the RAAF in New Guinea in 1945. Sister Mary Cutlerton, buried at Banker Island in 1942. Captain Winnie Mae Davis, Sumatra, 1945. Sister Margaret Demestre, hospital ship Manunda in Darwin in 1942. Lieutenant Doris Deutsch, Melbourne in 1944. Captain Ellen Donahue, Townsville, 1946. Sister Hilda Deutsch, Banker Island, 1942. Matron Eileen Drummond, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Dorothy Elms, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Caroline Ennis, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Marion Hewson, Northern Territory, 1942. Sister Lorna Fairweather, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Peggy Farmana, Banker Island, 1942. Staff Nurse Nancy Finch, Tamworth, New South Wales, 1940. Lieutenant Francesca Fox, Chester in the UK, 1946. Sister Rubina Freeman, Sumatra, 1945. Sister Dora Gardman, Banker Island, 1942. Staff Nurse Joan Gay, Palestine, 1941. Sister Clarice Halligan, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Nancy Harris, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Helen Francis Holtain, the Centre at Sea, 1943. Captain Pauline Hempstead, Sumatra, 1945. Sister Minnie Hodson, Banker Island, 1942. Lieutenant Gladys Hughes, Sumatra, 1945. Sister Margaret Jackson, Queensland, 1942. Matron Sarah Jewell, the Centre at Sea, 1943. Sister Ellen Keats, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Janet Kerr, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Evelyn King, the Centre at Sea, 1943. Sister Kathleen Kinsella, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Sheila Long, served with RAAF, Melbourne, 1946. Captain Pearl Mittelheiser, Sumatra, 1945. Staff Nurse Edith Morton, Palestine, 1941. Captain Mel Moston at the Centre, 1943. Sister Gladys MacDonald, Banker Island, 42. Sister Mary McFarlane, the Centre, 1943. Sister Mary McGlade, Banker Island, 42. Lieutenant Bernadine McMahon, Victoria, 1945. Sister Lillian MacPhail, Egypt, 1941. Sister Kathleen Lewis, Banker Island 42. Sister Alice O'Donnell, the Centre Hospital Ship Centre at Sea, 1943. Matron Olive Pashke, Banker Island 42. Lieutenant Nita Prideaux, Queensland, 1943. Lieutenant Wilhelmina Raymond, Sumatra, 1945. Sister Gwendolyn Robinson in Adelaide, also served with the RAAF, 1945. Captain Eileen Rutherford at the Centre, the Hospital Ship Centre at Sea, 1943. Sister Lavinia Russell, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Florence Salmon, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Marjorie Schumann, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Edna Shaw, the Centre, the Hospital Ship at Sea, 1943. Sister Verdon Shea, New Guinea, 1945. Lieutenant Eileen Singleton, Sumatra, 1945. Lieutenant Lillian Smith, Queensland, 1945. Sister Esther Stewart, Banker Island, 1942. Lieutenant Francis Stevenson, Victoria, 1944. Lieutenant Heather Stevenson, Queensland, 1945. Sister Mona Tate, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Cynthia Thideke, Ceylon, 1942. Matron Gladys Thomas, Egypt, 1941. Sister Annie Trenbury, Banker Island, 1942. Sister Wendy Walker, the Centre, the Hospital Ship, 1943. Sister Rosetta White, Banker Island, 42. Sister Wilmot, Banker Island, 42. Sister Mona Wilton, Banker Island, 1942. And last but by no means least, Sister Doris Wiley on the Hospital Ship Centaur, buried at sea, 1943. Ladies and gentlemen, these ladies, 97 of them I think you'll find there are, all paid the supreme sacrifice at various parts of the world from the Boer War through to the Second World War. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, John. I'd like to call on Mr. John Lane to read We Said a Little Prayer today.
This poem was written by Australian Army Chaplain Jim Cosgrove. We said a little prayer today, a prayer for mates who died, and no one here's ashamed to say there's been some tears we've cried. For good mates, full of zest for life, cut down while in their prime, amid the war's furor and strife, now gone before their time. We said a little prayer today for all the families and asking Lord for strength that they can bear their sadness, please. For parents who have lost a son and kids who've lost their dad and wives who've lost beloved ones. So tragic, Lord, so sad. We said a little prayer today for strength and courage for the mates and colleagues who must stay away to fight this war. We're sure they're sad to lose their friends, so help them bear the strain that when one day this fighting ends, this cost won't be in vain. We said a little prayer today for those who sacrifice their lives in service in the fray to pay our freedom's price. Oh, help us, God, to realise as tears flow for the lost, our peace and freedom is the prize that's won at such a cost.
Thank you, John. Now I'd like to ask the Mayor of Moonee Valley, Mr. Piers Tyson, to do a reading.
Today is the 108th anniversary of the landings on the Gallipoli beaches of Turkey by Australian and New Zealand troops, the original Anzacs. For 8 months, the Anzacs and Turks fought a gruelling, soul-destroying, mostly trench warfare where at times the enemy was so close they could be heard talking softly. Although staunch enemies, respect was built on both sides. So much so that the Turkish commander, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who was later to become the founder and president of the Republic of Turkey, penned a verse. Those heroes that shed their blood and lost their lives, you are now lying in the soil of a friendly country. Therefore, rest in peace. There is no difference between the Johnnies and the Mehmets to us, where they lie side by side, now in this country of ours. You, the mothers who sent their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and are in peace. After having lost their lives on the land, they have become our sons as well. Anzac Day is a time for us to honour, recognise and show respect for all those who have served their country, particularly those that sacrificed their life.
Thank you, Piers. I'd now like to ask Miss Louisa Levitus to read the Grieving Mother.
The Grieving Mother. I had no skills to offer. I had no wealth to spend. Mine was a greater glory. I had a son to send. Silently the shades of evening gather round my lonely door. Silently they bring before me the face I'll see no more.
Thank you, Louisa. The poem Mates, written in 1974 by Duncan Butler. Duncan was at the time of his enlistment in 1940 the Minister for Wagga Wagga, Church of Christ. He was also a POW in Changi. I'd like to invite Club Senior Vice President, Miss Jenny Brown, to read Mates.
Mates, I've travelled down some lonely roads, both crooked tracks and straight, and I've learned life's noblest creed, summed up in one word, mate. Someone who you can take you as you are, regardless of your state, and stand as firm as Ayers Rock, because he is your mate. My mind goes back to 43, to slavery and hate, when a man's one chance to stay alive depended on its mate, with bamboos for a billy can and bamboo for a plate. A bamboo paradise for bugs was bed for me and mate. You could slip and slither through the mud and curse your rotten fate, but then you would hear a quiet word. Don't drop your bundle, mate. And through it all so long ago, the truth I have to state, a man don't know what lonely means until he loses his mate. If there is a life that follows this, if there's a golden gate, the welcome that I want to hear is just good on your mate. And so to all who ask us why we keep these special dates, like Anzac Day, I answer why. Because we're thinking of our mates. And when I've left the driver's seat and handed in my plates, I'll tell old Peter at the door I've come to join my mates.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'd ask all the people who are laying a wreath to go over and prepare. We'll start our wreath laying. You're first. Yeah. Mr. John Johnson, OAM, President, Keilor East RSL. Miss Jenny Brown, Senior Vice President, Keilor East RSL and Region 3. The Mayor, Pierce Tyson, with the Deputy Mayor, Samantha Byrne, and Councillors John Sypek and Ava Adams, City of Moonee Valley. Mr Ben Carroll, MP, State Member for Niddrie, Minister for Industry and Innovation, Minister for Manufacturing Sovereignty, Minister for Employment and Public Transport. Mr Bill Shorten, represented today by Mr Rod Gurry and Mr Jack Dowsett. Bill is the Federal Member for Maribyrnong, Minister for NDIS and Minister for Government Services. Captain David Johnston for CSSB. Representing Mr Danny Pearson is Mr Rod Gurry. Mr Brian Sheehan, Vietnam Veterans, Northwest Region. Mr Ted Eastman, JP, RNSAA, Western Suburbs. Mrs Alva Lewis, Essendon Legacy Widows. Brian Woodward for Mr Bob Brown, 58 32nd Battalion Association. Mr Ross Darrigan and Miss Emily Darrigan. Ross is the President, 39th Australian Infantry Battalion Association. Mr William Laker, Keilor East National Serviceman. Mr. John McBride, Keilor East Lawn Bowls. Ms. Megan Stapleton, Moonee Valley Brass Band. Mrs. Amanda Stevenson, on behalf of her late father, Ron King. Ms. Louisa Levitus, animals killed in war. Ms. Nina Grzinski, Karinya Society. Mr. Murray Wilson, Keilor Probus. Ella, Jack, and Matea, Keilor Primary School. Adam, Olivia and Gordon, Essendon North Primary School. I'll now ask any other members of the public who would like to lay a wreath, please do so. Who is it? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll ask all who are able to please stand and call on Mr. Peter Dodds to read Lawrence Binion's For the Fallen.
They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Thank you, Peter. I ask you all to please remain standing for the national anthems of New Zealand and then Australia, led by Miss Amanda Stevenson.
Rohana let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair. Beneath our radiant Southern Cross we'll toil with hearts and hands to make this commonwealth of ours renowned of all the lands. For those who've come across the seas, we've boundless plains to share. With courage let us all combine to advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you, Amanda. I'll now ask the Guard Commander to dismount the Guard. Thank you, everyone. That completes our service today. I'd like to thank you all for attending. Special thanks to Force CSSB for their cataflag party, singer Amanda Stevenson, the bugler Miss Fiona Reading, the piper Mr Ross Bates, all those who laid wreaths, and all the volunteers who have assisted so far in today, and especially to you for attending. On behalf of the committee, I would like to invite you back to the club rooms for the traditional gunfire breakfast, or in our case, egg and bacon rolls, sausage sizzle, with juices, milk, and water available for the children or anyone else who likes it. Ask current and past members here today, please see a committee member to receive a wristband for later on today. Thank you for your attendance, enjoy the rest of your day, and you are welcome back to the club.
Least of your worries. Really I am. I can stand here all day. It's not a problem. I live ready. Come on and take it. No, that's the next one. I couldn't come the other ones today. I think my wife is somewhere.
Nice looking dog.
Look at that.
Yeah, Corgi Border Collie.
Okay. Yeah, he's good.